It started like any other Friday evening, or so I thought. I was sitting in my favorite armchair by the window, catching up on some emails and reviewing the blueprints for a new project. The house was quiet, the kind of silence I had grown used to, comfortable, predictable, the calm before the storm. Natalie, my wife, had just mentioned over breakfast that she had a work event to attend, a happy hour with her marketing team. Nothing out of the ordinary. These things happened frequently, and over the years, I had learned to let her have her space. After all, I had my own work and hobbies. We both respected that about each other. Our daughter, Amelia, was at a sleepover at her best friend's house. It was one of those rare evenings when we had the house to ourselves. I thought I'd enjoy the quiet, maybe catch up on some shows I had been meaning to watch, but work had a way of always creeping in. I told myself I'd take it easy, but before I knew it, I was still buried in my work when my phone buzzed at 7:30 p.m. It was William, a colleague of mine from the office. He invited me to join him at a new upscale nightclub downtown, a place called Elevation. Heard it's the place to be tonight. Why not join? Might be good for networking, his message read. It seemed like a good opportunity to unwind after a long week, and I hadn't been out in a while. So, I texted back, agreeing to meet up with him around 10 p.m. after I wrapped up some work. I arrived at Elevation just after 10:30. The club was alive with energy. The flashing lights and deep bass of the music hit me as I entered, a pulsating rhythm that set the mood. The place had an impressive vibe, high ceilings, dim lighting, and a mix of professional types who were either unwinding or networking just like me. I spotted William immediately. He was in the VIP section with a few clients, chatting animatedly. But as I made my way over to the bar to grab a drink, I saw something that made my heart stop. Standing on the dance floor, bathed in the club's neon lights, was Natalie. She was dressed in a form-fitting black dress I hadn't seen before, her hair styled in a way that was different from this morning. I stood there for a moment, watching her, thinking maybe it was just me seeing things. But as I continued to observe, I realized that she wasn't alone. She was dancing with a man, someone I didn't recognize. The man was tall, with a chiseled physique, and his posture suggested he was used to attention. I tried not to jump to conclusions. Maybe this was just a friendly dance, or perhaps she was in a work-related event, like she had said earlier. But there was something about the way they moved together that didn't sit right with me. His hands were on her waist, and as the music picked up, his touch slid lower along her body. I froze. My initial confusion began to twist into something darker. This wasn't just a friendly dance. This was something more. Her body language, open and responsive, made it clear that she wasn't pulling away. In fact, she seemed to be encouraging it. My chest tightened. Was this really happening? I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. I wasn't going to rush into any confrontation, not yet. I decided to wait and see how far this would go. But the more I watched, the more it became obvious. The man's hand moved boldly from her waist to her thigh, tracing a path that no stranger should have been allowed to. And Natalie? She wasn't stopping him. She was laughing, her arm now casually draped around his neck as if this was completely normal. At that moment, it hit me like a freight train. 15 years of trust, built up over the course of our marriage, seemed to disintegrate in the span of a few seconds. I felt a cold weight in my stomach. This wasn't just a minor infraction or an innocent misunderstanding. No, this was deliberate. This was a betrayal. I couldn't stay there anymore watching them. I turned on my heels, my mind racing. I wasn't sure what I would do next, but I couldn't let this go unanswered. I walked toward the dance floor, my feet feeling like they were dragging in slow motion. Neither Natalie nor her dance partner noticed me approaching. They were too caught up in their moment. I stood there, just a few feet away, before Natalie finally seemed to sense my presence. It took her a second, but when she turned and saw me, her face shifted, first to surprise, then to confusion. And finally, it settled on something that looked a lot like annoyance. "Jonathan, what are you doing here?" she half shouted over the loud music, as though I was the one out of place. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I should be asking you that," I replied, my voice surprisingly calm, even though my heart was pounding in my chest. "This doesn't look like a work event." The man next to her straightened, his hand still resting possessively on her back. He looked me up and down with an easy smile. "Friend of yours, Becca?" he asked, clearly unbothered by the situation. "This is my husband, Jonathan," Natalie said, her tone defensive. "Jonathan, this is Eric. He works in digital marketing at Apex Solutions. We were just having some fun." I couldn't believe my ears. "Fun?" I repeated, the word tasting bitter in my mouth. "This is not fun, Natalie. This is disrespect. And you're acting like nothing's wrong." I didn't wait for her to respond. I turned on my heel and walked away, heading toward the VIP section where William was waiting. I felt the weight of her eyes on my back, but I didn't look back. I couldn't. I needed to escape, if only for a moment, from the chaos that was starting to unravel before me. William noticed my tense demeanor as soon as I rejoined him. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. "Just saw something I wish I hadn't," I muttered, ordering a scotch from the waitress. I tried to focus on the conversation at hand, but my mind kept returning to that moment on the dance floor. What had just happened? And where did we go from here? As the night wore on, I couldn't shake the image of Natalie dancing with Eric. Her casual disregard for me, for us, was something I wasn't sure I could ever forget. She had crossed a line, and in that moment I realized there was no going back. The night passed in a haze, my mind spinning with the events I had witnessed. I tried to focus on the conversations with William, but all I could think about was Natalie, her laughter, the way she welcomed Eric's touch as though I didn't exist. By the time I left the club around midnight, I felt hollow, like I was walking through a dream that I couldn't escape. The drive home was quiet, and as I entered the house, everything felt different, cold, sterile, like the space had been rearranged without me even noticing. I noticed that Natalie's car was in the driveway, the garage door closed, but the house was completely dark. I wondered if she had come home early, but the silence inside made it clear she hadn't. When I reached our bedroom, I found the door slightly ajar, and I could hear the soft rustling of sheets. Natalie was in the guest room, lying down, her body facing away from me, her posture stiff. I stood at the door for a few moments, contemplating what to do next. Should I confront her now? Should I wait for the morning? But I knew it couldn't wait. I couldn't let this go on any longer. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. The sound of my footsteps seemed to echo in the room, but Natalie didn't stir. "Natalie," I said, my voice calm but firm. She shifted slightly, then finally turned to face me, her expression unreadable. "What do you want, Jonathan?" she asked, her voice cold. She didn't even bother to sit up. "I think we need to talk," I replied, my chest tightening. "About what happened tonight." She sighed deeply, rolling onto her back and staring up at the ceiling. "Jonathan, I don't think this is the right time," she said, her voice betraying a hint of frustration. "It's late and I'm tired. Let's talk tomorrow." "No," I said, shaking my head. "This can't wait. What I saw tonight, it's impossible to ignore." Natalie sat up then, her face flushed with a mixture of confusion and anger. "I'm not sure what you think you saw, but I'm tired of this. I told you I was at a work event. I was just having fun, Jonathan. It's not a big deal." "Fun?" I asked, incredulous. "That was not just having fun, Natalie. That was more than that. You let him touch you. You let him touch you in ways that no one has the right to. And you didn't even try to stop him. What does that say about us? About our marriage?" Her expression hardened, and she folded her arms across her chest. "You're overreacting," she said. "It's just dancing. People do this kind of thing all the time. I don't see what the problem is. Maybe if you weren't so controlling, you'd understand that I'm allowed to have a little fun without you getting all upset." "Controlling?" I repeated, my voice rising now. "How is it controlling to expect respect in a marriage? To expect that my wife won't cross boundaries like this? I don't care if people dance. But what I saw, what you let happen, was disrespectful not just to me but to everything we've built. You've always been so serious, so rigid," she shot back, her voice now tinged with bitterness. "Maybe that's the problem. You don't know how to let go and have fun. This isn't a prison, Jonathan. I have a life outside of you." The word stung more than I cared to admit. My breath hitched as I realized something I hadn't wanted to face. "Is that what this is about? You've been unhappy? Is that why you let him touch you like that?" Natalie's face softened, and for a brief moment, I saw something resembling regret. "No, it's not about you. It's about me. It's about everything that's been building up. You don't notice, do you? You're so focused on your work, on being the perfect father, the perfect provider. Wow, I'm just here stuck. I'm just here trying to feel something. Anything." And Eric, he listened. He saw me, Jonathan. He saw me when no one else did. A cold silence filled the room as her words hung in the air. I wanted to scream, to shake her and demand that she realize the gravity of what she had done. But instead, I stood there, frozen, as the realization of her loneliness hit me. I had been so wrapped up in my own world that I had failed to see the cracks forming in hers. "You think this is about you and Eric?" I asked, trying to steady my voice. "This is about us, Natalie. This is about a marriage that was supposed to be a partnership. We've been building this life together for years, but you just tore it all down for a momentary feeling of attention from someone else. And now, you want to act like it's no big deal? She looked at me then, really looked at me, and for the first time that night, I saw something that resembled vulnerability in her eyes. I don't know what to do anymore, Jonathan, she whispered. I don't know how to fix this. I don't even know if I can. The weight of her admission hit me like a ton of bricks. She was lost. Lost in a way I didn't fully understand, and maybe, just maybe, I had played a part in her losing herself. I ran a hand through my hair, pacing the room. You know what I saw tonight, Natalie? I saw you being someone I don't recognize. Someone who's willing to throw away everything, for a moment of attention. And now, I don't know how to look at you the same way anymore. She stood up then, moving toward me slowly, her face a mixture of fear and guilt. I don't want to lose you, Jonathan. I just wanted to feel something again. I looked at her, my heart heavy, torn between the man I had been and the man I was becoming. I don't know if I can forgive you for this, Natalie. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. You've broken something between us. And I don't know if I can fix it. The silence that followed was deafening. Neither of us spoke for what felt like an eternity. It wasn't just the betrayal that stung, it was the fact that this night had shattered everything we had built. And no matter how much I wanted to find a way back to what we were, something deep inside me knew that it would never be the same again. The following days passed in a blur. Natalie and I barely spoke, aside from a few obligatory words when it came to dealing with Sophia. Our home, once a place of shared memories and comfort, now felt like a battleground. The tension between us was palpable, every glance sharp with unspoken accusations. I couldn't look at her without seeing Eric's hands on her waist, the way she had welcomed his touch so easily. And every time I tried to confront her about what had happened, she would shut down, deflecting or changing the subject, as though pretending nothing had truly happened could somehow make it all disappear. It wasn't just the immediate betrayal that ate at me, it was the aftermath. The emotional distance that had grown between us over the past few months was undeniable now. I realized how much of her life I had been blind to, how much I had taken for granted. She had been unhappy, disconnected from me for a long time, and I hadn't noticed. I had been too consumed with my work, my responsibilities as a provider, to see the signs. I had failed to be the husband she needed, and now I was paying the price. It wasn't long before the fallout spread beyond our home. Natalie's colleagues began to whisper, and I could see it in their eyes when I saw them in passing: empathy, pity, and sometimes even judgment. I hadn't expected it to be so public, but the video of Natalie and Eric dancing had spread like wildfire. People at her office had seen it, her friends had shared it, and now even family members were beginning to ask questions. I knew that the next conversation I had with Natalie would be crucial, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the damage was already done. On the fourth day after the club incident, I received a message from my brother, Mark. He had known about the video for a couple of days and had been trying to reach out to me, but I had avoided his calls. He asked me if I wanted to meet for coffee. I didn't want to, but I knew it was inevitable. I had to face my family's reaction, the people who had always seen Natalie as a part of the family. Mark had been the one who had supported me when I'd first gotten married, and I knew this wasn't going to be easy for him either. I arrived at the cafe first, sitting at a table near the window, my hands wrapped around a hot cup of coffee that did little to warm me. When Mark walked in, his expression was one I couldn't quite read, concern but also something else. He sat down across from me and we exchanged a brief greeting before he took a deep breath. "Jonathan," he started, his voice low, "I know this is tough, but you've got to hear this from me. I've spoken to Natalie's family. They're concerned about her too. This situation, it's not just about the betrayal anymore. It's bigger than that." I felt the weight of his words pressing down on me. "What do you mean?" Mark leaned forward, lowering his voice. "They've been talking about getting you two into counseling. I know you're angry, but it's not something you should handle on your own. You've been married for over a decade. It's not just about what happened in the club. It's about your whole relationship, and I don't think either of you really knows how to fix it." I sat back in my chair, trying to process what he was saying. I had been so focused on the betrayal, so focused on the image of Natalie dancing with Eric, that I hadn't considered the depth of what had led us here. I was angry, yes, but part of me felt lost, like I didn't even know who we were anymore or who I was in this marriage. "I don't know if I can trust her again, Mark," I said quietly. "I don't know if I can look at her the same way after what I saw." Mark nodded, his expression understanding. "I get it, man. I really do. But you need to figure out if this is something you want to salvage, because if you just let it go, it's going to eat at you. And Natalie, she's not handling this well. I've spoken to her a couple of times and she's a wreck. She's scared of losing you, scared of everything falling apart. I ran a hand through my hair, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. She's scared? What about me, Mark? What about what I've been feeling? I watched her, standing there, laughing with him, letting him touch her. And she didn't even think twice about it. That's not something you just fix with a couple of apologies. Mark paused, taking in my words. No, it's not. But sometimes, Jonathan, we don't see the cracks until they're too big to ignore. You've both made mistakes, but you still have the choice to figure out if this is something worth fighting for. His words echoed in my mind long after we parted ways. Fighting for it? Could I fight for it? Could I fight for her after everything that had happened? The next day, Natalie came home early from work. She was carrying a bag of groceries, her movements slow and deliberate. When she saw me, she stopped in her tracks, her expression guarded. I knew what she wanted to say, but I wasn't ready to hear it. Not yet. She set the groceries down on the counter and took a deep breath. I know you're angry, she began, her voice trembling. I know I've hurt you. And I'm sorry. But please, Jonathan, don't walk away from us. I can't lose you. I can't. I stared at her, feeling the ache in my chest grow deeper. I had been waiting for this moment, for her to finally acknowledge what had happened. But as the words left her mouth, I didn't feel the sense of relief I had expected. Instead, I felt an emptiness that no apology could fill. I don't know if I can keep doing this, Natalie, I said, my voice breaking. I don't know if I can just move past this. She took a step toward me, reaching for my hand, but I pulled away. Her face fell, and for a moment I saw the raw vulnerability in her eyes, the same vulnerability that had been missing when I watched her with Eric. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered, her voice barely audible. But I've made so many mistakes. And I'm ready to fix them if you'll let me. I looked at her, and for the first time in days I considered her words. Could we fix this? Could I find a way to forgive her? Or was this the point of no return? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mark, asking if I was ready to take the next step. Counseling, he had suggested again. I stared at the screen, my mind swirling with the possibilities. And for the first time in days I felt like I had a choice. I turned back to Natalie, meeting her eyes. Maybe we can try. But it's going to take time. And we both need to be honest about what we want. She nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And in that moment, I realized that the path ahead wouldn't be easy. But maybe, just maybe, there was still a way forward.
The days following our conversation were filled with an emotional roller coaster. Natalie and I agreed to see a marriage counselor, but it wasn't easy. There were times when the sessions felt like small victories, and other times they felt like we were stuck in an endless loop of hurt and confusion. I wasn't sure what I wanted anymore, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. The first few sessions were difficult. We both had a lot to say, and most of it wasn't pretty. But over time, I began to see a shift in how Natalie approached the situation. She was no longer deflecting, no longer trying to minimize what had happened. She was open, raw, and vulnerable. And while I still carried the scars from that night, I started to realize something important. Forgiveness wasn't about forgetting what happened. It was about choosing to rebuild trust and letting go of the bitterness that was eating me alive. The turning point came one quiet evening, about a month after we'd started therapy. Sophia was at a friend's house for a sleepover, and Natalie and I found ourselves sitting together in the living room. The house was calm, the usual noise of our busy lives replaced by an unsettling silence. I've been thinking, Natalie began, her voice tentative, about everything, about the mistakes I've made and about how I've failed you. And I just want to say, from the bottom of my heart, that I am so sorry. I know words are just words, but I've been trying to show you through my actions that I am committed to making this right. I want to be the wife you deserve, the mother you deserve, and I'm willing to fight for that every day. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in weeks, I saw the woman I had fallen in love with. It wasn't the woman who had danced with Eric, the one who had betrayed my trust in the worst way possible. No, this was the woman who had built a life with me, who had been my partner through thick and thin. This was the woman who was still here, still willing to try. I don't know what the future holds for us, I said quietly, my voice thick with emotion. But I do know that I can't keep holding on to this anger. I've been so focused on the hurt, I've forgotten the good we've had. And maybe that's where I went wrong. Natalie reached for my hand, her touch gentle but firm. We both have our faults, Jonathan. But we also have a history, a daughter, and a love that isn't gone yet. I don't expect things to be perfect, but I do believe we can heal. And I want to heal with you. We sat in silence for a few moments, letting her words sink in. For the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe we could rebuild what we had. Maybe we could find our way back to each other. But it wasn't going to happen overnight, and it wasn't going to be easy. But I was ready to try. In the weeks that followed, things slowly began to change. We worked together, not just in therapy, but in every aspect of our lives. There were setbacks, moments where old wounds would flare up, but we faced them together. We weren't perfect, but we were committed. Sophia noticed a change too. One evening, after dinner, she looked at us both, her expression a mix of curiosity and hope. "Mom, Dad," she said hesitantly, "are you guys okay now?" I glanced at Natalie, and we both smiled, a quiet reassurance passing between us. "We're working on it, sweetheart," Natalie said softly, her hand resting gently on Sophia's. And for the first time in a long while, I believed that maybe, just maybe, we were going to be okay. Not because everything was perfect, but because we were willing to fight for each other. The process of rebuilding our marriage wasn't linear. There were days when it felt like we were taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But the important thing was that we were moving forward together. And as time passed, the pain of that night began to fade, replaced by the slow but steady work of healing. Eventually, things returned to a new kind of normal. Our home felt warmer, more alive with laughter and conversations. Natalie and I were in a better place, not perfect, but real. And for the first time since that night at the club, I felt at peace. The journey wasn't easy, but it was ours. And as we continued forward, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we'd face them together. Because no matter what, I wasn't ready to let go of what we had built. Not yet. Not ever.